any respect for himself. He should not envy anyone and should always be expert and free from material attachment. He should have firm faith in the spiritual master as well as his worshipable Lord. He should always be eager to engage in devotional service and thus attain his goal of life. One who wants to advance in spiritual understanding should not find fault in others and should avoid idle talk. And Vishwanath's commentary is 2 sentences, 3. The qualities of the disciple are described. No, Bhaktisiddhanta is saying duties and Vishwanath is actually saying qualities. He should be devoid of possessiveness, nirmama, and should have strong affection for Guru and the Lord. He is not hasty in attaining his desired goal, asatvaraha. And here comes a really long purport. This is Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Rupa Goswami, I believe. Your book, this is the translation of Madhya 24, 330. Madhya 24, 330. Your book should describe the characteristics of the bona fide guru and the bona fide disciple. So we're going to hear about both in the purport. Then, before accepting a spiritual master, one can be assured of the spiritual master position. Similarly, the spiritual master can also be assured of the disciple's position. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, should be described as the worshipable object, and you should describe the bija mantra for the worship of Krishna, as well as that for Rama and the other expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the verse, and really long purport. In the Padma Purana, the characteristic of the Guru, the bona fide spiritual master, have been described. Characteristics. Quote, the Guru must be situated on the topmost platform of devotional service. There are 3 classes of devotees, and the Guru must be accepted from the topmost class. The first class devotee is the spiritual master for all kinds of people. It is said, Gurur Nrinam. The word Nrinam means of all human beings. The Guru is not limited to a particular group. It is stated in Upadesh Amrita of Rupa Goswami that a Guru is a Goswami, the controller of the senses and the mind. Such a Guru can accept disciples from all over the world. Prithivim Sasishat. This is the test of the Guru. Paragraph. In India, there are many so-called Gurus, and they're limited to a certain district or province. They do not even travel about India, yet they declare themselves Jagat Guru, the Guru of the whole world. Such cheating gurus should not be accepted. Anyone can see how the bona fide spiritual master accepts disciples from all over the world. The Guru is a qualified Brahmana. Therefore, he knows Brahman and Parabrahman. He thus devotes his life for the service of Parabrahman. The bona fide spiritual master who accepts disciples from all over the world is also worshipped all over the world because of his qualities. Lokanam asau pujo yata harihi. The people of the world worship him just as they worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these honors are offered to him because he strictly follows Brahminical principles and teaches these principles to his disciples. Such a person is called an acharya, because he knows the principles of devotional service, he behaves in that way himself, and he teaches his disciples how to follow in his footsteps. Thus, he is an Acharya or Jagat Guru. Even though a person is born in a Brahminical family and is very expert in performing sacrifices, he cannot be accepted as a guru if he is not a strict Vaishnava. A guru is a Brahmana by qualification, and he can turn others into Brahmanas according to the Shastric principles and Brahminical qualifications. Brahmanism is not a question of heredity. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7:11-35, Sri Narada Muni tells Maharaj Yudhishthira what a Brahmana is. He states that if Brahminical qualifications are observed in Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or even Shudras, one should accept them as Brahmanas. In this regard, Srila Sridhar Swami has commented, quote, "The most important criterion for deciding whether to deal with someone as a Brahmana or as a member of another Varna is the presence or absence of self-control and other Brahminical qualities. We should not judge primarily according to superficial qualities, characteristics like birth. This is stated in the verse beginning Yasya 7:11-35. If the qualities of one Varna are seen in someone born in another, he should be designated according to the Varna of his qualities, not that of birth." Paragraph. There is a similar statement made by Nilakanta, a commentator on the Mahabharata. Quote, "Although one may be born in a Shudra family, if he is endowed with the Brahminical qualities, beginning with Shama, control of the mind, he is to be accepted as a Brahmana. Although one may be born in a Brahmana family, if he is endowed with the qualities beginning with Kama, or lust, he is to be considered a Shudra." Unquote. No one should present himself as a Brahmana simply on the basis of being born in a Brahminical family. One must be qualified by the Brahmana qualities mentioned in the Shastra, particularly Bhagavad Gita 18:42. Samodhamakta pakshocham shantirarjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahmakarma swabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Unless one is qualified with all these attributes, he cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. It is not a question of simply taking birth in a Brahmana family. He's saying it over and over. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that, here's some history, Narottam Das Thakur and Shyamananda Goswami, although not born in Brahmana families, are accepted as bona fide spiritual masters because they were Brahmanas by qualification. Personalities like Sri Gora Narayana, Ramakrishna, and many others who were actually born in Brahmin families accepted Narottam Das Thakur and Shyamananda Goswami as their spiritual masters. It's an interesting bit of history and caused some turmoil during that period of time. By the Smarta Brahmins, they didn't like it. One was born a son of a king or a zamindar, and another was born in a Shudra family. But both became exalted. Paragraph. The Mahabhagavata is one who decorates his body with tilak and whose name indicates him to be a servant of Krishna by the word dasa. He is also initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and is expert in worshipping the deity, chanting mantras correctly, performing sacrifices, offering prayers to the Lord, and performing Sankirtan. He knows how to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how to respect a Vaishnav. When one has attained the topmost position of Mahabhagavata, he is to be accepted as a guru and worshipped exactly like Hari, Personality of Godhead. Only such a person is eligible to occupy the post of a guru. However, if one is highly qualified but is not a Vaishnav, he cannot be accepted as a guru. One cannot be a Brahmana unless one is a Vaishnava. If one is a Vaishnava, he is already a Brahmana. If a guru is completely qualified as a Vaishnav, he must be accepted as a Brahmana, even if he is not born in a Brahmana family. The caste system method of distinguishing a Brahmana by birth is not acceptable when applied to a bona fide spiritual master. A spiritual master is a qualified Brahmana and Acharya. If one is not a qualified Brahmana, he is not expert in studying the Vedic literature. Nana Shastra Vicharanai, and if you know, every Vaishnav is a spiritual master. And a spiritual master is automatically expert in Brahminical behavior. He also understands the Vedic Shastras. Please remember, this is still one purport. And it goes on for a few pages. It's important. Similarly, a disciple's qualifications must be observed by the spiritual master before he is accepted as a disciple. In our Krishna consciousness movement, the requirement is that one must be prepared to give up the 4 pillars of sinful life: illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. In Western countries especially, we first observe whether a potential disciple is prepared to follow the regulative principles. Then he is given the name of a Vaishnav servant and initiated to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra at least 16 rounds daily. In this way, the disciple renders devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master or his representative for at least 6 months to a year. He is then recommended for a second initiation, during which a sacred thread is offered, and the disciple is accepted as a bona fide Brahmana. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced the system of giving sacred thread to a bona fide Vaishnav, and we are following his footsteps. The qualifications of a bona fide disciple are described in this morning's verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.10.6. Here's the translation again. The disciple must have the following qualifications. He must give up interest in the material bodily conception. This is Prabhupada's translation. That's different than the BBT translation. They should have just taken this one. Anyway, he must give up material lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. He should be interested only in understanding the science of God, and he should be ready to consider all points in this matter. He should no longer think, I am this body, or this thing belongs to me. Unquote. One must love the spiritual master with unflinching faith, and one must be very steady and fixed. The bona fide disciple should be inquisitive to understand transcendental subject matter. He must not search out faults among good qualities, and he should no longer be interested in material topics. His only interest should be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's Prabhupada's, you could say, purport to that this morning's verse. As far as the mutual testing of the spiritual master and disciple is concerned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that a bona fide disciple must be very inquisitive to understand the transcendental subject matter, as stated in the Bhagavatam 11.3.21. Tasmat Guru Prapajita Jigyasu Shre Uttama. One who is inquisitive to understand the highest goal and benefit of life must approach a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him. A serious disciple must be alert when selecting a bona fide spiritual master. He must be sure the spiritual master can deliver all the transcendental necessities. The spiritual master must observe how inquisitive the disciple is and how eager he is to understand the transcendental subject matter. The spiritual master should study the disciple's inquisitiveness for no less than 6 months or a year. A spiritual master should not be very anxious to accept the disciple because of his material opulences. Sometimes a big businessman or landlord may approach a spiritual master for initiation. Those who are materially interested are called Vishayis or Karmis, which indicate that they are very fond of sense gratification. Such Vishayis sometimes approach a famous guru and ask to become a disciple, just as a matter of fashion. Sometimes Vishayis pose as disciples of a reputed spiritual master just to cover their activities and advertise themselves as advanced in spiritual knowledge. In other words, they want to attain material success. A spiritual master must be very careful in this regard. Such business is going on all over the world. The spiritual master does not accept a materially opulent disciple just to advertise the fact that he has such a big disciple. He knows that by associating with such Vishayi disciples, he may fall down. One who accepts a Vishayi disciple is not a bona fide spiritual master. Even if he is, his position may be damaged due to association with an unscrupulous Vishayi. If a so-called spiritual master accepts a disciple for his personal benefit or for material gain, the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple turns into a material affair, and the spiritual master becomes like a smarta guru. There are many caste Goswamis who professionally create some disciples who do not care for them or their instructions. Such spiritual masters are satisfied simply to get some material benefits from their disciples. Prabhupada's really got his gloves off and he's like swinging away. Such a relationship is condemned by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who calls such spiritual masters and disciples a society of cheaters and cheated. They are also called Baulas or Prakrita Sahajyas. Their aim is to make the connection between the spiritual master and disciple into a very cheap thing. They are not serious in wanting to understand spiritual life. Paragraph. The word Sevya Bhagavan in this verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita are important. Bhagavan indicates the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu alone is worshipable. There is no need to worship demigods. In this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:20. Kamaistaita Hritigana, etc. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their natures. It is also stated in Skanda Purana, Vasudevam parityaja nyonya devam upasate sma mataram parityaja swapachim vandate hi saha. A person who worships the demigods and gives up Lord Vasudeva is like a man who gives up the protection of his mother for the shelter of a witch. Swapachim, swamataram prityaja, swapachim vandate. It is also stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:23, Ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayan vita te pimam eva konteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and to worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. Demigods are also living entities and parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, in one sense, one worships Krishna when one worships the demigods, but not in the proper way. There is a proper method to water a tree, : one should water the root. But if one waters the leaves and branches instead, he is simply wasting his time. If one worships the demigods to the exclusion of Lord Vishnu, his rewards will only be material, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:23. Antavatu palam tesham tadbhavatyapamedhasam devan devaya jo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Paragraph. Demigod worship is meant for unintelligent men because the benefits derived from demigod worship are all material, temporary, and retractable. It is stated in the Padma Purana. It's quoted in elsewhere, and they're still reading the same purport from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it makes reference to another verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 18, 116. This is a Prabhupada quoted this one often. Ye tu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudrani Daivataha Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhavedruvam. Whoever thinks Lord Vishnu and the demigods are on the same level is to be ultimately considered a rogue as far as spiritual understanding is concerned. And I think I'm going to end there. There's more, not just one more page, but yeah, there is just one more page. I'll read the one more page, and we'll go on to next text tomorrow. Take a deep breath. One page. There are three modes of nature in the material world, but when one is situated spiritually, he's above the material modes, even though he lives in the material world, as Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagat sagunan samatijaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the material modes of nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. In material consciousness, however, even one who is situated in the mode of goodness is susceptible to pollution by the modes of passion and ignorance. When the mode of goodness is mixed with the mode of passion, one worships the sun god, Vivaswan. When the mode of goodness is mixed with the mode of ignorance, One worships Ganapati or Ganesha. When the mode of passion is mixed with the mode of ignorance, one worships Durga or Kali, the external potency. When one is simply in the mode of ignorance, he becomes a devotee of Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is the predominating deity of the mode of ignorance within this material world. However, when one is completely free from the influence of all the modes of material nature, one becomes a pure Vaishnava on the devotional platform. Interesting, huh? As Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Yavilasha Shanyam, etc., translation is there, the position of Vishuddha Sattva is the position of uncontaminated goodness. On that platform, one can then understand Aradyo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanyas Tadama Vrindavanam. Celebrated verse. I was just hearing Prabhupada speak this verse. It's a verse by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Rajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanyas. Vraja Isha is Nanda Maharaj, and Tanya is the son of Nanda Maharaj. So instead of saying Nandana, it's Vrajesha Tanya. Tadama Vrindavanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is to be worshipped along with his transcendental abode, Vrindavan. Final paragraph. The word Sarva Mantram Vicharana in the present verse of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita means, quote, considering all different types of mantras, unquote. This is also very interesting. There are different kinds of mantras for different kinds of devotees. There is the mantra known as Dvadashakara mantra, composed of 12 syllables. And there is the mantra composed of 18 syllables. Similarly, there are the Nasringha mantra, the Rama mantra, the Gopal mantra, and so on. Each and every mantra has its own spiritual significance. The spiritual master has to select a mantra for his disciple according to the disciple's ability to chant different mantras. Now, Prabhupada's writing this, but he didn't select different mantras for different disciples. He's describing, it's not like, hey, how come you're not doing that? We're following Prabhupada. He's just describing, these are details in the scripture that are qualities and duties of a spiritual master and disciple. So it's been going on quite some time here. We're going to go to one slide, nice slide. There's a skiscape. Seascape. Waves in the ocean. And here's the text. There we go. No one can claim to be the permanent proprietor of his so-called wife, family, home, society, and so on. Such material relationships appear and disappear like bubbles on the surface of the ocean. Notice in the bottom left and bottom right, there's bubbles. She just added to the photograph of the waves. There's some bubbles. Appear and disappear like bubbles on the surface of the ocean. No one can claim to be the creator of the material elements that produced one's home, society, and family. Therefore, before death drags these things out of our grasp, we should voluntarily engage them in the loving service of the spiritual master, who is the bona fide representative of the Lord Krishna. Then such material objects, instead of causing lamentation, will be the causes of happiness. I'm not going to take some time to summarize because it's already late. Let's see if there's some discussion on this extended topic here. Qualities of a disciple, qualities of a Brahmana, qualities of a guru, duties of a disciple, so on. Duties of a guru. Selecting. We mentioned the Nrsimha Gayatri mantra. Now, it's not something that it took some research. It took somebody that knows how to read Sanskrit to find the mantra and just sharing it with you. But there are Gayatri mantras for other forms of the Lord. Okay, let's see if there's some topics you'd like to discuss.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I'm kind of still formulating the question. I'm not sure if I can put in words. But seems like when I was hearing the description and the detail of the verse, it's the language is a lot around like as if it's rule based, or
The language is what?
it's more like shoulds and must, as if it's rule based.
Rule based, okay.
Yeah. And then also as if these are the prerequisite, and if one doesn't match it, then it's like, but it's also, I'm trying to understand that this also can be taken as that it's a progressive
Yes.
journey.
Yes.
So there are
exactly.
preliminary requirements or preliminary traits, but then they enhance in the relationship, in guru-disciple relationship.
Thank you for adding. I mean, I just, the reading was so long, I didn't get around to that. Yes, you expressed it very nicely. It's not just goals, and it's, it's progressive, but this is what it looks like in the mature stage. Targets to aim for, or qualities to aspire for, qualities to try to live by. Yeah.
So as a disciple, one of the way that I'm understanding this verse is that one can also see one's guru as an expert disciple. So how one learned to be a disciple is by following an expert disciple. So it in that, because we follow disciplic succession, it's always a progressive journey, that the more one associate with one's guru, those qualities of becoming a good disciples become more and more in that relationship as a...
Well, at least the potential is there for that. Because some persons associate and they don't develop those qualities. Some persons associate and they develop those qualities. This is one of our topics for the weekend. It's, what does automatic mean? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana, that verse. Sar, Vair, Ganais, Tatra, Samas, all the good qualities of the devas develop in the devotee. And then so automatically means what? That's going to be one of our whole classes, is discussing that. And then the breakout, make sure you attend that one. That's going to be Saturday night. And Juana Jivan is going to do the facilitation. So back to, yes, by associating with Guru, those qualities, the potential is there for them to develop. And they, you can say, the same should or can. It's enhanced. The possibility is there. So for, yeah. It's like these things that are in scripture that say, one who does this they cross the ocean of material existence. I don't know if I'm across the ocean of material existence yet. There's potency, there's potential, and then it's a journey, it's a process, it's ongoing. Same with association, same with service, it's ongoing. Okay, more?
Yeah, just one more clarification. So when I was hearing you read about this, there were a couple of times the qualification of guru is being described as one who knows Brahman. And in one place there was this qualification of the disciple, or the guru evaluate the disciple by the inquisitiveness, that how much the disciple is inquisitive to understand the transcendental subject matter. So to me, it seems like both of them are again centered around Krishna, or if we take from that perspective. So sometime I hear this kind of sensitivity toward that. Oh, they may not know you or a particular. I mean, what I'm trying to formulate is that it's not the requirement that the guru need to know the minute details of one's own or the disciples' different shades of material conditioning.
Yet, so two things. Brahman and Para-Brahman, it's there specifically, and there's a distinction. Conventionally it's Brahman, and Vaishnava means Para-Brahman. That's the qualification. And then this other is Prabhupada's answer to, does the spiritual master know everything? And his answer was, because it says that the Vedas say, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. When you become spiritual master, you become the knower of Krishna, you know everything. So does the spiritual master know everything about his disciples? Or does he know everything about everything? And Prabhupada's answer was, he knows what Krishna, what he needs to know for his service. Now let's take the pristine example of Srila Prabhupada. He engaged people that like just this morning, I was listening. He was really heavy. He was in Vrindavan, and I don't know what the circumstance was at the time, but apparently there was some neglect, and he was really being heavy about, management must know everything about everything and manage everything perfectly, and that you specifically mentioned leave the gate open. No. Everything, it was like, it must have been really intense for whoever was the manager at that time when Prabhupada was in that mood in Vrindavan, because he wanted everything to be done expertly. He referred to the qualities of a devotee. He's daksha, he's expert, so he has to be expert. And then started listing things he has to be expert in. Gosh, we're not expert. We're trying to do some service, and we're not expert. And he wasn't like that wasn't good enough. He wanted the devotee just to be expert and feel that weight. And sometimes he was in that mood. So he would engage people that weren't qualified and put, I would say, like pressure to be qualified. Ooh. To help that person not be complacent and lazy, and to help the standard come up. He knew when to do, what to do, and so forth. So it's not that it's not that the spiritual master knows all of the minute details of everyone's everything. At the same time, just like a teacher is or a parent must have some gift from Krishna to understand what the qualities and qualifications are to so as to encourage the disciple or the child in ways that match their nature. It's a gift. And those that don't have that gift mess up. But it's a gift. Like in a classic sense. And there's always unfolding. So it's like in a classic sense, something that a baseline for me is this verse in the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, where Bhishma Dev is instructing Maharaj Yudhisthira about how to train people. Okay, I accept that I'm supposed to be the king. Please tell me how to engage people. And he goes to training from childhood is quality and character. And most important is character. Character goes to all the children. And then the gifted teacher sees this one has this quality, you could say varna, and he trains him according to his varna inclination. That one has that varna, and then trains according to, gives, resources and teachings and so forth. Now that's where it's like one teacher for a small number of students, and there's intimate knowledge of that student, and the teacher has to be able to teach them everything. I mean, that's the qualified, that's the supermodel, Vedic model. Just like what happened, without going into it too much, but that's one of the things that happened when Drona and Drupad were in the same school together. They had some inclination, so Drona was sent to another teacher, and so anyway, right, because he wasn't gifted in giving him that particular instruction, but he saw the quality, so he wanted him to take special training. Anyway, to some degree, back to the premise of your question, to some degree, the spiritual master has to have some understanding of, as a parent, has to have some understanding of their dependent disciple or child. But that all starts to unfold also in course of time. It's not always very clear from the very beginning what's the nature. But seeing something and giving resource and watching, and then observing. And so, back to Prabhupada's, the spiritual master knows what he needs to know. Krishna gives him that understanding. And then, of course, that how Krishna gives that understanding can be so many different ways. Not only Super Soul gives the understanding, it can come from other ways, through other sources. But so the essential is the mood of service and purity, and according to circumstance, then the spiritual master knows what the spiritual master needs to know. Or say it the opposite, the spiritual master isn't Super Soul. Representative, but not omniscient Super Soul. Anything here? Okay, online? The sun is out over here. It's raining over there on the computer, and it's sunny outside.
Question from Sucharita Devidasi. Does the word Brahmana or a Brahmana has some connection to Brahma? Maybe I think.
Yes. Prabhupada says it like this. Brahmana means one who knows Brahman.
Question from Giribara Daridas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was meditating Vrajavasis. His students were against it. How can we understand this pastime?
I don't understand the reference. You send another message because I don't understand your reference.
Question from Visalaksha Prabhu. There are various kinds of Brahmanas. How can we know they are Vaishnava Brahmanas? What are the prime qualities to cultivate to become Brahmana initiated?
Well, Brahmana Vaishnavas worship Vishnu, or one of the forms of Vishnu, and they follow those tenets. You know, there's external markings like tilak and neck beads, but there's also qualities and their type of worship. And they don't worship others. So those are some very simple ones.
Question from Shrida Das. I have this question from Prahlad Maharaja's prayers where he says, remedies in the material world are more miserable than the miseries themselves. Sometimes during fever, we take medicine and it relieves us from misery of fever. But Prahlad Maharaj says that remedy is more miserable. May I kindly know how to understand this, Maharaj?
Well, it's not that Prahlad Maharaj is saying, when you have a fever, don't take fever medicine. That's not what he's saying. In simple terms, as we seek material solutions to material problems, we become more implicated in the affairs of the material energy, which is more suffering. That's in simple terms.
Question from Sucharita Devidasi. Can you please elaborate how to increase potency or probability of progressing spiritually?
Sadhu Sangha, and carefully guard against offense. And Sadhu Sangha means serving, not just hanging out. Sadhu Sangha means, Vaishnav Seva will say. But Sadhu Sangha means Vaishnav Seva. Being in the mood of service of the Vaishnavas and carefully guard against offense. Next. That's it. The rain stopped. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.